What's up, mamas? I'm Rebecca. You're watching the Reseller Mom Show. Thank you for joining me today for episode number 17 of Reseller Momversations. I am so excited to have Sarrah on with me today. She's known as Thrifting for the Nest on YouTube and on Instagram, and I don't even know exactly when it was that I watched her and kind of who I found first, but she was one of the very early people that I watched a couple of years ago when I got started. And I always thought that all of her videos were very nice, very uplifting, very positive, and I just thought that she brought a lot to the reseller community. So I'm very excited to have her on today, and I will let her introduce herself. Welcome, Sarrah.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So tell everyone just, the general stuff, who you are, where you're from, how many kids you have, the reseller mom stuff that we need to know.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, my name is Sarrah, and I am from the Pacific Northwest. I am from the Portland, Oregon area, and I have been a reseller for 7.5 years. I feel like I should start saying 8 years now because, it's almost the new year. I started summer of 2012, and I've got 2 kiddos, ages currently 10 and 8. So, I started reselling when my kids were really young, and I've had I feel like I have good hindsight now of what it's like to be a reseller raising kids. And we've had a lot of high highs and some low lows and some things I would do again, but it's served us really well in this season of having young kids at home for sure.
And so you sell on eBay and Poshmark.
Yep.
Those are your 2 platforms.
Yeah. And really Poshmark is like, I do it because I should, but eBay's really where my heart lies. And it's in all honesty, it's where my income comes from. Mm-hmm. Poshmark is just kind of like side income, but I have not seemed to figure out the key to Poshmark. It's probably, doing more of it, but I feel like eBay is easier for me and I put more of my efforts into it. So that's what pays me the most. So that's, goes hand in hand.
Awesome. And I'm like kind of the complete opposite because I feel like Poshmark has my heart. It is so easy for me. eBay is the giant crazy thing that I hate so much. But at the same time, for the 3 years that I've been reselling, I've sold on both of them for the most part, and I would cross post everything. And for given a few $100s, they are both equal as far as sales every month. For the most part. Now, only recently did it change, and that's why I'm kind of making some changes myself for 2020. But I would love to hear, any eBay advice you have, because right now I'm in a love-hate relationship with eBay. But we'll start with, the reselling with the kids stuff first, because I do feel like I've had a 17. You're the 17th episode, which is exciting. I've tried to really have different people on that have different situations so that we can showcase all of the different faces and walks of life of what being a reselling mom is. Because when we see, on Instagram, you see the highlight reel, you see all the good stuff. You don't always see what's behind the scenes. And for those with small children, sometimes it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel when they get bigger. Or like for me, I started reselling when Gio was 6 months old. And so that's all we know of me being a stay-at-home mom, of me being a reseller, and of me having a child. They've all been intertwined. I don't know one without the other. So it just is what it is. And so it sounds like that's, even though that was a little bit ago, your experience as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when Gavin was born, he's my oldest, I worked in the corporate world for 2 years. And then when I had Ethan, I knew that it didn't make sense for me to stay at my job and pay for childcare. So I just kind of bit the bullet and said, we'll figure this out financially. eBay wasn't even on my radar when we made the decision for me to stay home. Either. So, I had a year of just pinching every penny. I watched a girlfriend's kids for a period of time to make some extra income, which was wonderful, but it wasn't, I knew something else had to give, right? Like I knew I needed something else income wise. And my intention was always to okay, let's just white knuckle this thing until my kids are, in school age. I'll go back into the corporate world. That was absolutely my intention when I quit my job to begin with. And so when the opportunity to resell came along, when Ethan, my youngest, was a year old and Gavin was 3. Again, when I started, I was like, well, let's just see if I can make a couple $100 a month. I mean, I was couponing like crazy at that point just to like pay for groceries. I mean,
Why
that's
don't we all start out at couponing? It's so funny. There must be some like similar brain thing that like many resellers are also extreme couponers.
Right. That was, I mean, I don't think I ever hit that momentum of being an extreme couponer, but it was the way that I could contribute to my household income at that point. Right? It's the thing that I could control. But when I started reselling, it was like, I was like, okay, if I can make like maybe $200 a month doing this, it'll be worth it. Right. Yeah. And then I went to the bins, got a cart full of clothes, did everything on auction, and made $800 my first month. And I was like, there's real money in this. And so I was sold from that point on.
How did you know what to do that first? Like, did you already know reselling was a thing? Or did you go on YouTube and kind of learn about it? Like, how did you initially come up with that? Or do you not remember? Because I know.
No, I totally remember. Oh, okay. So my neighbors, you may have heard this on some of my YouTube channel, but my neighbors were the bin pickers. So if you know Greg and
okay, no, I didn't. You knew. Yeah, you were friendly with Nicole.
Yes.
Yeah. I knew that part. I didn't know about the bin.
Years into my reselling journey, my connection with Nicole, but I knew about eBay from Greg and Michelle.
Got it.
Because long before YouTube, they were just my neighbors, and I knew they sold on eBay, and I was like, that's super weird. Like, you do that full time? How do you, like, how do you have a nice house and you're homeschooling kids? Like, what's happening? Like, to me, that's wild. And I don't know what I thought, but I was literally having a garage sale because I've always thrifted. I've always loved garage sales, both having them and going to them. So this was always kind of in my blood. Mm-hmm. But I was having a garage sale and Michelle came over. It was kind of toward the end of the day, and it wasn't a great garage sale day. And Michelle was like, why don't you sell some of this stuff on eBay? It was really nice of her, right? She totally could have just
bought it and done it herself.
Pilfered my garage sale for resale, but she encouraged me to sell it on eBay. And I was like, no, that's your thing. I don't think so. I don't think that's for me. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like my wheels started spinning, and that's just, for me, that's kind of the way like I move into new things, as I just start to obsess. And I'm like, okay, I think God must be telling me something that I should do here. So that's what I started doing. But funny enough, I didn't try to sell that stuff for my garage sale. I went to the bins.
Bought stuff, right? Didn't make sense that you could do it with your own things.
No, I was like, well, I know that's what Michelle does, so I'll just go to the bins. And I remember my first bins trip going, I don't know if any of this stuff is going to sell. I mean, Michelle had kind of told me you can look it up on eBay and see what the solds are. So she showed me just base level. Right. Here's how you check comps. But honestly, I remember being like, well, this is a mall brand. Gap's got to sell well.
Right, I've heard of it. Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Gap, exactly.
I just thought, like, if it's a mall brand, if I've seen it in an outlet store, which is true in some cases, but not all. So I definitely learned like the hard way.
Yeah.
But that's actually how I learned eBay. Is there was no YouTube that I knew of. I didn't know about Facebook groups. So it was basically, I would stalk Greg and Michelle's eBay store. I mean, I would just be like, what did they sell today? And back then, all we were doing was auctions. So Buy It Now wasn't even on my radar. In fact, the few times that I had tried Buy It Now, nobody looked at my stuff. So I pretty much just copied what they were doing. I mean, I'm unashamed about it. Like, I would, like Michelle and I joke about it all the time, but I just would watch their store and I'd say, okay, North Face is selling, Columbia is selling, cycling gear. I mean, I really stuck with more sports and athletics gear when I first started. Okay. But the beauty of running auctions at that time was it taught me what sold and what didn't, because I would put it up for auction and I could base the desirability on how many views I was getting, how many watchers I was getting, and then of course how many bids, and then ultimately what the price was that it sold for. And I did that for 2 years. I only did auctions for the first 2 years of my business, and that's what taught me the industry. So sure, I would check comps, but it was really like, well, this might sell at the bins. Right. I mean, I'm looking at kind of ridiculous things at that point just to see like, well, will this sell? Does anybody want this?
Right.
And that's how I learned, between watching her store and then trial and error with auctions. That's kind of how I learned about what was selling. So
it's something you're saying now just kind of like rung a bell, and I've been thinking about it too. And today I did a video, it's going to go up on another day, who knows when in the schedule, but of like, why do I have this like eBay issue? And I think it's because like you learned on eBay. So you started when you were small, you only had so many listings in the beginning. You were able to really watch and see and get a feel. And that's where you like cut your teeth on it. Whereas for me, that was with Poshmark and TopSpot, which Poshmark bought out. And so sharing and share groups and all of that time consuming stuff, and not having stats to look at and stuff like and analyze is how I started with it. And so you're always going to compare something to what you initially like came up with, I guess.
Yeah.
And so you had a lot more data maybe to go off of and really kind of figure out, and with auctions and whatever, whereas with Poshmark it was just like share more, you know, just list more, share more. That's all you can do. That's all you have basically. So it's interesting. It's just kind of, I'm just, cause I've been thinking about it the last couple of days. So it's on my mind of like, how can I be a better eBay seller? Because it can't be that much more different. I'm just not looking in the right places, I think.
Well, and I wouldn't recommend now in 2019 or 2020 coming up on this new year. I don't know if I would recommend starting the way that I started. I don't think the market is conducive to running auctions the way that I was doing in 2012 when I started. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to completely slash all my current business practices, but even like I've got a friend that I've been helping and teaching her how to start on eBay. And I was like, well, you can try to run auctions. And so I would watch her auctions and none of them would sell. So it was really defeating. And so I'm like, you're buying the right stuff, you're running auctions, and you're not getting any momentum. And so once she switched over to Buy It Now with reasonable pricing, then she started moving stuff. So I just am not sure that I don't know, your viewers might have a different story, but I know some people that I shop with at the bins who still only run auctions, and they're fine with a $10, sales price on an item that could typically sell Buy It Now for $30 because it's just turn and burn for them.
Yeah.
So it just depends on, I guess, what you want, because in 2014 is when my sales just started tanking. And that's, I feel like all of us can relate who have been in the industry for any period of time, is we have to say, okay, something's changed. So I either can throw in the towel or I can change in order to keep current with what the market's doing. And so that's when I discovered YouTube resellers and Facebook groups. I started listening to the Scavenger Life podcast. Like that's when I started kind of digging in, like, what are other people doing right now who are keeping afloat, because surely the entire eBay market's not tanking. So I need to do something different. And that's when that's when I changed up things. I stopped buying only athletic gear and I started buying more designer brands, women's clothing, and doing Buy It Nows. And that's kind of when, out of necessity, because it was either that or I wasn't going to make it through that 2014, 2015 change.
And so that was probably even before I found you then. And so you did that. And then did you do a lot of, or did you do a good amount of vintage? Am I making that up? Because I feel like I would, no? Okay. So maybe there was
I love vintage, but I cannot figure out the vintage market. So I'll buy it if I love it. Okay. I never know how to price it. I'm definitely not an expert. Okay. I'd love to be. I'd have to do some research on it.
Yeah, because I definitely remember like from the hauls you would do, because I used to like watching your hauls, and you did touch on it, because you'd say, oh, it's summertime, so it's difficult right now, or maybe you took a break over the summer. I remember you talking about the summer, and I remember you're like, I just dropped the kids off and now I'm that's when you would do maybe your haul video or something. Yeah. There was a lot of Nike, a lot of athletic stuff still, but then like nicer designer things.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I must have made up the vintage. But then at some point, then you pivoted again, because that's when I feel like I lost touch with you on YouTube, because you changed into like spices and things, right?
So that actually just happened this year.
That was this year. Okay, I'm sorry, my timing is like I feel like if you're not constantly checking up on like whatever the YouTube algorithm takes in and out of your little feed world, then sometimes you lose track of the chronology of things, So sorry.
No, okay. So I actually disappeared from like YouTube altogether a couple years ago. I had some personal things that I needed to work through and wasn't quite sure where I was taking my reselling business, but really needed to just pull back. I never quit or stopped reselling. I just pulled back and what volume that I was doing for a period of time. But this year, as I've been kind of building things back up again, I was starting to see other resellers dip into things like spices and like more grocery products. And so I played around with that a little bit this year, but it's definitely not like, it's not the direction I'm going.
To do that. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I always kind of like in the back of my head, I'm like, what other things are there? But I feel like I'm so clothing and it is such a machine now. I know what I'm doing and it all makes sense and stuff, where it's like, do I really want to learn how to do like a completely other thing and then add an expiration date on top of it? Like that would just,
oh man. Yeah. Yeah. And I dipped my toes in the Amazon waters this year a little bit. It's not for me. Like I can see where it could really be for somebody. It's, I should say it's not for me right now. Maybe eventually. I tried it out, but I just feel like I can't lose with this going to the bins where my price is, very low. That's super low risk. I feel like Amazon's just higher risk by the time you're buying, I was doing retail arbitrage, like shopping at grocery outlet and stuff like that to buy products and hope that they flip for something. But between being gated on Amazon for so many things and then just taking risk, it's just not for me. Cause I feel like, even if everything gets donated back at the Goodwill outlet, it's hardly any money out of my pocket, all things considered. So the return on investment is always worth it.
And your bins, they do the like higher price, but then when you hit a certain amount of pounds, then it lowers.
Right. So I don't even know what the price is when you're under 25 pounds. Cause I rarely do that. Like I've actually been the person that they're like, you're at 23 pounds. And I'm like, cool, here's my coat. Here's my water bottle.
And I'll just pay for it.
Because I'm short on time. I don't have time to go back to the bins, because I think by the time you get to like 13 pounds, you may as well have 25 pounds because you're actually paying more for 13 pounds than you are for 25 pounds because of that price break. So yeah.
And so, but then what is it, 99 cents or something?
It's $1.30. It used to be 99 cents a pound, but they raised the price about a year ago.
Yeah, because I don't know if we were ever 99, then we were 119, and now it's 139, but there is no, or that I've ever seen them advertise, higher amount the more pounds you get. So just the one thing. But even that still, and like I have my reseller thing, I'm sure you do too. Well, maybe you don't have even tax on it there.
No not here in Oregon. Yeah.
So in Florida, we have tax on clothing, but I have my reseller certificate, so I don't have to pay that. So that's good. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing with bins is that if you can, because that's, I think, where some people, I don't know, maybe it's just my situation, but when you do the bins, it is great if what you're finding and pulling out in mass is legit good stuff, or if you're really having to dig in and you're not getting the volume of really good things, then you're also in a pickle, because like sometimes I buy stuff just you get caught in that you're buying it because it's cheap, but you're not getting that resale price that you want in the $20 and $30 range or more that people would like to be in. We're more in the $10 and $15 range, which is fine. But as a reselling mom, it's hard to do the volume. Like it's hard to do it. And that's where I go back. I'm like, oh, I'll just sell more. But I'm like, I really cannot keep up with doing more. I can only do what I can do. And at that rate, you have to be more selective then.
It's really a fine line, I think, because I'm okay with the $10 to $15 flips, but I have to have a good amount of higher dollars in there too. But it's not like I can walk into a bins and say, okay, today I need this many quick flips and, this many slower.
Yeah.
But I think you just can't plan for it. You just get what you get. And I just run it through my filter. Can I sell this quickly? In relatively quickly, between 30 and 60 days.
Okay.
And can I sell it for at least $10 to $15? That's kind of where I'm at with what I'm picking at the bins. And there are days I go in and I'm like, I cannot get past, 16 pounds. And some days I'm filling my cart to completely overflowing.
Right.
And a lot of people will say, oh, you guys have the best bins in Portland. And we do. I mean, I'm kind of spoiled because I've only been to 2 bins in my life. And one is in Portland or Hillsborough where I'm at. And then the other one in like Salem, Oregon, which is, about an hour away from here. and the Salem bins, in my opinion, were not nearly as good, at least in that one time that I went, as here. But then I've heard amazing things about the Seattle bins and the LA bins. So, I think it just kind of depends on where you're at. And my mom lives in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've sent her to the, she did reselling for a while, and I sent her to the bins in Nevada, and she was like, yeah, this stuff is not good. So, but no, it's like, I only know what I know. I haven't branched out too far. So.
Yeah. I don't think that there's anybody in the reseller community that I've seen that's like, oh man, these Orlando bins are the jam. Like, I don't think it's happening. I could tell you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like, I mean, you do find good stuff, but it's more like you're in a diamond in the rough. You go for 3 hours.
Okay.
You can come away with a cart full, depending on how selective you are, but it's going to be like 5% really good, and the rest of it is loft, or what, kind of thing.
I know. Well, and I think too, because our Goodwill stores, like our regular Goodwill stores, are so overpriced.
Pricey. Yeah.
That stuff all goes to the bins, right? I mean, thrifting is huge here. It's like trendy and cool, and not at all like it was when I was growing up, right? I was a thrifter even then, but I like kept it on the down low because I would get for my Goodwill thrift clothes. But now it's cool and trendy, especially in this part of the country. But so I think Goodwill knows that they can mark up their stuff, because I see really trendy people now when I go to regular Goodwill stores. They're shopping for themselves, and they're finding $20 for a cute dress at the Goodwill. So our Goodwill
that's basically like the resale market. Like, I'm kind of looking at it as like there's Goodwill, and then there's the resale market, and then there's retail. And for them, that is it's like skipping a step basically.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Now, did you bring, when they were little, let's go back to the kids part.
Sure.
Did you bring them ever to the bins with you? Is your bins a place where you bring kids?
No, I have brought them usually. So my husband, when I first started, he was like, this is awesome. I can't believe you're selling this stuff. You know what I mean? And so he would get excited about the hunt at first. He hates it now, but probably the first few months that I'd started would be like, yeah, this is a family outing. So we would bring kids, and he would kind of, manage the kids for a period of time. But I could never do like a 3-hour stint if I had even my husband and kids with me at the bins. Now I refuse to take my kids because it's just, and it's not like scary or dangerous. It's just incredibly boring for them. And I don't even park my cart next to me when I'm picking through a new rotation. So I just can't even imagine what that would look like at any point. And I always feel bad for the kids that are at the bins because it's just boring for them. That said, I've taken my kids to like the regular Goodwill stores. And I mean, it used to be that every Sunday, because it's half off day, is like the color change switches on Sundays. Yeah. So the kids just knew after church we were going to the Goodwill store, and we would bribe them with toys, but it was really a drag for them. So that was kind of in the a couple of years ago, I said, we're just not going to do it anymore. And my kids will sometimes, like once every few months, come to a Goodwill, or like when we're traveling, we always like to hit thrift stores. Like if we're on vacation, we'll try to hit the local thrifts. So they'll know that that's just part of when we're road tripping places, that they will come. But I know what their tolerance levels for it are. So
no, and that's good. I mean, I think, it's hard, and I've said it before, like, I feel like 1.5 to 2.5 that year is the hardest for doing anything with the kid, let alone try to be a reseller with the kids. And I feel like, after 2.5, it's still troublesome, but they can start playing right by you, or, things like that. They're still napping, hopefully, or whatever. So you still have some options. And then, now Gio's 4, so we can go to we'll go to Goodwill retail from time to time, and he's good for, an hour with something to do. And now we're looking at the colors of the tags, and we're talking about stuff, and, kind of a learning thing. But when he was a baby, it was just all about the snacks, the snacks and whatever fluffy thing I could bring, or whatever book I could quickly desanitize, wipe off while he was there. But yeah, I mean, the ones that bring them to the bins now, it's hard because I'm always proud of a woman making her own money. You never know what her situation is, and you can't be like, why do you have your kids here? Like, you can never do that. But my heart breaks every time that there are kids there, because some people don't even bring something for them to do. Like, they don't even they don't even hand off their cell phone to that. You know what I mean? And one could argue that that's good or not good to do. But like I saw one little boy and he was about Gio's age, about 4, just following her around.
Yeah.
And he had nothing to, like, you can't be upset with your kid when you don't make any effort to, like,
right.
you know?
Yeah. But I you said a really important thing, that my situation could be very, very different than other reselling moms, right? Like it was easy for me to leave my kids with my husband if I wanted to go thrifting, even when they were really young, or he would go with me. That way he could entertain the kids and, pick around a little bit while I really got to work and did the digging.
Right.
And that's a luxury that I have, that I'm very thankful for, that I know some moms don't have. So I never want to be like judgmental of moms that don't have that. And they just, that this is an out for them. This is an opportunity for them to make money and better their situation. So I will never judge in those circumstances, because my situation is different.
Right.
Because I feel you figure out what works for your family.
Right.
And, if your hours the only hours that you can go thrifting are when your kid is home, and you figure out a way like to make it as joyful as possible, or make those stints as short as possible, and get what you can in those stints, then great. But I remember my husband actually worked from home on Thursdays when my kids were like littler. So those were my days like that I would go to the bins.
That's my day too, Thursday.
Home. He was home on Thursdays. So that was like my bins day. And then I would go on Saturday mornings. So I went 2 times a week when he was home, and that worked for us. And then I would list during nap time, and I would list during, like after they went to bed in that earlier season. And now, no, I don't have to do that because my kids are, in
right. They can occupy. Now, how did you do your photos and stuff? Did you get to, cause you had a room, right?
Yeah. So my setup has changed a couple times, in my course of reselling, but I have one like office, and I list and I photograph from that office. It's a small space, but it works for me. So I photograph on a background just like what you have. It looks like white paper with a hanger on it, and I hang a torso, and I usually batch photograph and then sit down to list all at one time. So
got it. Good. And so how do the kids feel about it now that they're older? Like you said, they know about going thrifting sometimes on vacations or whatever. But I am always curious, especially because you do have boys, so Gio will be, their age someday. Are they embarrassed by it? Do they think it's cool? Do they just think you're like crazy weird mom person? Like,
I think it's all
other people's clothes.
Yeah. I think it's all they know. I will say that my thriftiness for my oldest son, he has gotten very used to wearing like all Nike and Under Armour and Adidas, because that's what I've had an easy time thrifting his clothes and he loves to wear that. So he's 10, almost 11. And so now it's like harder to find stuff when your kids are older, like that fit them, because I feel like boys especially like wear out their clothes. Yes. And so now I've kind of created a monster, because he's like, well, I only wear Nike. And I'm like, ooh, I'm not spending $40 for Nike warm-up pants for my 10-year-old. Right. So those are things that I find, oh man, I think I've created a monster without realizing it, in that, there's this expectation now. Or when he'll say, I need such and such, like new basketball shoes. I'm like, give me a week. I'll either thrift them or I'll buy them on eBay or Poshmark.
Right.
Because I'm not going to spend $130 for a pair of basketball shoes for you, but I know I can get you good ones. That is where it starts to become embarrassing. Like, Mom, why can't I ever get new stuff? And I'm like, because I know too much. I know too much. Right. Like, I know too much. I know I don't have to pay those prices.
Right.
So
about how much that's save for, for clothes for Gio, and that, just buying them at Goodwill, or, thrifting them in other ways, or like we have a Once Upon a Child here, like, in Simon Store for kids or whatever. So getting stuff there. And, I remind my husband all the time, like, that he would be way more expensive to clothe if it weren't for what I do. Cause I think, there's the husband, it sounds like yours is very supportive and, got a kick out of it and recognize the value of it. I think my husband has come around. I'm also super intense about things, so I probably rub him the wrong way about it. But I've yet to really make the killing that I tell him can be made from this job.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Like I have made poor decisions from time to time. I do have helpers, and so there's just a lot of things that have gone into the fact where I'm not bringing home probably the money that I could or should have. And hopefully next year will really be the year where I make all the right decisions.
Yeah, well, maybe,
then,
I don't know if it's possible to make all of the right decisions, but you'll probably be better than you were this year.
Yeah. I mean, I just, like you said, you get really intense about stuff and you kind of jump right in. I did that, but then I also learned by doing, and sometimes that means spending money when you haven't really, figured it out anyway. So, having a good supportive husband is awesome. So I think that, probably helped contribute.
It's helpful for sure.
What, like if there was anything that you could go back and do different as the kid, and I'm thinking of it more from the lens of the reselling mom, like, did you put them first a lot of the times and less on the business, and maybe you're like, you know what, I could have pushed the business a little bit more, or maybe put the business first and could have spent a little more time. Like, I'm just really curious, again, from someone who's been through it and is now a few years ahead of me age-wise on the kids, what kind of things you look back and say, I wish I would have done it a little differently, or maybe not anything at all.
Yeah. I try not to have regrets, but that said, I mean, part of my pulling back a couple years ago was because I was kind of way out of balance. I was chasing the wrong things. And that was part of my season of stepping back and kind of reevaluating what was important and where my time really should be spent. So I would be remiss to say, nope, did it all fine, because I'm doing it differently now in this season where we don't go to Goodwill on Sundays. I have to just let those 50% tags just go.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the way that I wanted my kids to remember. Like every Sunday we had to go to the Goodwill. Right. And it's not, I'm a firm believer in like, yes, we need to like sacrifice for our kids and do things for our kids. But I also do believe like life can't all be entertainment for our kids too, right? Like there's responsibilities and real life things that they get to be a part of. And that's how we teach them about like, the value of work and all of those things. But it's a balance, because I do know that there were times that I should have been more engaged, but instead I was spinning my wheels. Like, how can I sell more? How can I do this? Or got to share my when I started doing Poshmark, that's the thing I don't like about Poshmark, is I feel like I'm just always on my phone, and I'm really trying to not be on my phone in front of my kids all the time. I always think, yeah, just a few years, they're going to have phones and they're going to be like, well, this is what mom does all the time. She's on her phone, so I could be on my phone all the time, right? Like, I just want to be a good example to them. And I try to explain to them too, because it's come up where my kids have said, Mom, why are you on your phone? And I'm like, I'm working from my phone. This is my job. So if I didn't do this, you would be in daycare right now.
Right.
So understand, like, this gives me freedom to be home. But, I don't want to, you could over justify that as a mom and be like, it's fine. I'm really on social media right now, seeing what all the other resellers are doing. And, even just down to like watching movies with my kids.
Yeah.
You think it doesn't matter. Like, oh, I'm sitting here with them. I'm on my phone working. And it's fine. I've seen cars, 4 times. I'm good. But there's a connection that gets missed, I think, if we're on our phones working. And because I'll notice my kids will look over at me and be like, oh, wasn't that so funny? Oh, you're not paying attention. Like, that's happened. Yeah. And those are heart check moments for me. So those are things that I do. I mean, I don't feel like I did anything disastrously like wrong in my reselling journey with them. But I do wish that I would have spent more time, really only been on my phone at nap time, or and now my kids they don't want to hang out with me all the time. So they're like, we're going to go play, a game or whatever. So I do feel like I have more freedom now, but that wasn't the case when I had a 4 and a 6-year-old, or even a 2 and a 4-year-old. So I feel like it's just really important to be present in those moments where we can be present. And eBay, reselling, Poshmark, it'll always be there, and you're not going to miss the boat by spending time with kids and your family.
I'm really happy with everything that you said, because I needed to hear that, and I didn't know that's what you were going to say, of course, but I think a lot of other moms that maybe have kids in that 2 to 4 range where they can play on their own, and so we're starting to see the light, and so that gives us a little bit more freedom to work more, but then that also flips into we do more, but they still need us when we're there, and we need to be present with them. And I think about that with Gio. Like, I always knew that the baby and very young toddler stage was like not so much my cup of tea. Like, like
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
a mom and I love being a mom, but I'm not really a caregiver. Like that was hard for
I
me.
hear
That
you.
was a stretch for me. And so now that I'm in the, really just cutting up some food and wiping butts and like generally keeping him alive, those are my care. Like in general, like he can do so much himself and he's so proud to do so much by
Yeah.
himself and I'm, encouraging him to be a person that wants to do things on their own and not just have mommy do it for you. Then we kind of take it for granted too, because like you say, they are looking over at you and they realize that you weren't just watching the cool thing or you're saying in a minute because I'm typing this message to the crazy lady asking me about the measurements again or whatever.
Yep.
And or the movie thing. My husband yells at me all the time because of the movie thing if I'm on my phone during family movie night. So I think it's a good message for us all to be reminded of from time to time, especially the moms that have the kids at that age. And hearing it, because I think this 3 to 5 year old period now is probably going to be my very best favorite. Like they're still super cute, they say things not correctly, like they still need your help but not as much. And then like after 5, I don't know, I haven't been there, obviously they'll still be cute and they're still kids, but there's just a little less of that sense. I don't know. I'm calling it ahead.
Well, our kids, they go through stages, right? So this is just parenting stuff, but like our kids, they have different needs at different stages, right?
Yeah.
The needs that my kids had at, 4 and 6 were very, very different than the needs that my 10 and 8-year-old have right now. And it's a matter of just trying to be discerning and wise and take a step back and say, okay, here's what I think I need to get done today, but here's what really needs to get done today.
Right.
And I don't do it. I don't do it perfectly, but I'm constantly, I just look at things from a different filter now after taking that step back for that season. And so, and again, what do I want my kids' memories? They're always going to be like, oh, my mom was always at the thrift store. Like that's going to be part of their story.
Right.
Always.
Right.
But at the same time, I want them to stay, but she was always there when it mattered, when I needed her, when it counts. Right. And so, and that's just part of like letting that mom guilt go. If you're called to be a reseller as a mom, you'll figure out how it works, and we can't beat ourselves up if we give too much time to our business one day and not enough time to our kids. Cause the next day we'll do better, because if it's not reselling, it's another thing. Like we have so many things that we're measuring ourselves up against.
And I think that's like, you can't always have balance every day in the day, but you can have balance over the week. Over a month, this month versus next, like don't let it go for too long, but and so I've been trying to really remind myself of that too. Like today, I didn't get, well, not specifically today, but another day this week, it was like a heavy family day and I really didn't get much done at all. But because I'm able to, set up my weekly schedule, like you do with, husband on Thursdays and this and that, you set it up to where what your life is, you can build it and mold it around what you have. Then you can build in that balance, let's say over the week or the, here and there. So I think it's just about giving yourself grace and remembering to do that and, not being too hard on yourself, like you said, but noticing those special times with your kids when you can, because I think we all know if you're a stay-at-home mom that chooses to resell, so now you're maybe a stay-at-home mom with a business, or maybe you're a work-from-home mom, however you classify it, it was because you wanted to put your family first in some way, and then you were going to do the reselling, perhaps. I mean, maybe not for everyone, but that was for us. And so then sometimes we forget to reel it back in and remember that. So I appreciate you saying all of that. Well, I want to be, mindful of your time. And I think every conversation that I have with each mom takes a different twist. And sometimes they're more momming things and sometimes they're more reselling things. And you have so much reselling knowledge and experience to give. And, that's why I watched you in the very beginning. It was so helpful. So, I mean, if you have any other, whether it's eBay specific, because, maybe you don't want to say about Poshmark, but any tips or anything that you'd like to give, not to put you on the spot before we wrap up. I didn't want it to be too light on the reselling, but just the way our conversation.
Yeah, no, it's great. I feel like the tips that I have to give are pretty they're common. I keep going back to, even as like somebody who's trying to create content, there's only so many ways to say, like, list consistently, make sure you're accepting best offers, and all of the things that all of us resellers are saying. But that's really it. But I find too, because there's the consistency thing is so key on eBay. I wish that Mondays could be my listing day, and I could just list 40 items on Monday and not list again till next Monday. I wish that I could do that, but that would kill my sales because of the way that algorithms work, right?
Right.
So the consistency really is key, but I'm learning to not let myself be a slave to the eBay algorithms, right? Because I can't. Like, if I don't leave myself margin for when my kids need me, or if I get sick, or whatever, because I'm like, no, because then all this momentum I just built up is going to die because of the eBay algorithm. Like, you can't live under that weight. That's too much for us to carry. So just giving ourselves grace as resellers to say, you know what, I did my best today, right? I know this about myself, my intention. I'm a morning person. So I would love to say, hey, I will list when my kids go to bed. My kids go to bed at 8 o'clock. And if I was a night owl, I could list until midnight. There's no way. I just know myself enough to know that I can't even have a functional conversation after 8 o'clock at night.
Well, I don't do lives at night or schedule Momversations at night, because you can't. Right? Knows what I would say at that point.
I've tried so many times. I've said, okay, that's just going to be my best work period. And I did it out of necessity when I first started because my kids were so young. But it's just not for me. So just learning to give myself grace, like those days that I'm like, I had a goal to list 15 and I listed 7. And instead of staying up late and losing out on sleep and losing out on more family time, I'm just going to be okay with that. I list 7 today. Right. And if I couldn't get anything listed today, I'm going to end a few listings and then sell like that are stale. I'm going to do sell similar just to have some activity on my account. Right. I'm learning just to figure out how that works, so I don't stress out about not getting all my listings up for the algorithms, because that could drive somebody crazy.
It does. And that, and they all they all, I mean, even with Poshmark, you should be listing every day, but I do feel the pressure on eBay to feed the machine is like all the more oppressive.
Yeah. I mean, because I think any eBay reseller knows that if you've taken a 2-week break from reselling, everything comes to a screeching halt. So it's a reality of this business, but you just have to figure out, like you said, if I didn't do it all on Monday, then just to know to balance it out through the week. So we do the best we can.
No, I appreciate that. Well, any other thoughts that you'd like to let the other reseller moms have from you?
I don't think so. I can't think of any today, but I'm sure we'll end this and I'll be like, oh, I know.
Right. Well, and I've said it, with pretty much everyone. It's, I try to be mindful. We're going to be, at like 45 minutes, and it's like, I say a half an hour, it's never half an hour, but I feel like I want to be mindful of your time and also the people watching, because as reseller moms, we can't always devote such a long period of time. And I see that, I guess some of my videos just drag on and whatever, but we know as YouTubers, retention is important, and so you want to keep your videos as succinct as possible so that people will stay through a longer percentage of the video.
Of course.
I'm terrible at, so whatever. But and we didn't even get to chat about you with YouTube and stuff, so I will invite you back again for sure, so that way we can pick up where we left off. But I thank you for joining me. Go ahead and let everyone know it's Instagram and YouTube, and they're both
Thrifting for the Nest. Everything. So it's one word on Instagram and it's broken up on YouTube. But yeah, those are the 2 places that people can follow me over there.
Perfect. Awesome. And I will link it, and I will put it, on Instagram as well. This will go live, on Saturday. But thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. And for those watching the video, thanks so much for joining us today for another Reseller Momversations. Please go ahead and like this video on the way out. Comment below and tell us a little bit about what you thought about today's conversation. We'd love to hear from you, and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already to my channel and to Sarah's as well. Thanks so much, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.